There's nothing more wholesome than a nice glass of milk. It's cool and delicious and nourishing and calming. And we associate milk with so many good things, motherhood and childhood and cleanliness. And the same goes for where we get milk. We think of a dairy farm as a family place with a nice clean barn, rolling fields, fresh hay, docile cows mooing and chewing their cuds. It's no accident that when Marie Antoinette wanted to pretend to be a simple, virtuous peasant, she and her ladies-in-waiting would dress up as milkmaids and go off and milk cows. Of course, those were specially cleaned cows, specially prepared ones chosen for their docility. And as for Marie Antoinette, well, we all know what happened to her. The real story of dairy farming is not so pretty. And Rebecca Clarren told that story fully and well in the August 31st, 2009 issue of High Country News. In The Dark Side of Dairies, Ms. Clarren shows us how different the reality is from the idyllic stereotype. Dairy farm work is hard, dirty, and dangerous, and those who do it have few protections, especially if they're immigrants, most especially if they're illegal immigrants, as most of them are in the western states that High Country News covers. The irony is that in some ways, dairy farm workers have it better than many other agricultural laborers. But they're subject to all kinds of exploitation, long hours, no breaks, accidents and injuries, regulatory and governmental protections that it would be generous to call inadequate, and always the fear of losing the tenuous hold on their jobs if they complain to overburdened or indifferent authorities, or, God forbid, if they seek to better themselves and their families by getting together to form a union. Through her scrupulous, fair-minded, and vivid reporting, Rebecca Clarren shines the light of her skills and humanity on this neglected corner of our economy and our country. And in this, she has had the support of a magazine that many of you may not have even heard of, but that is on the cutting edge of using long-form journalism in the service of social justice. This is the second time in 3 years that High Country News has won the Hillman Prize for magazine journalism. This is quite a blow to those of us who labor in obscurity in the organs of the Eastern elite establishment. I guess it shows that talent and enterprise can sometimes trump connections and smugness. So it's with mixed feelings of admiration and alarm that I present the 2001 Hillman Prize for magazine journalism to Rebecca Clarren of High Country News.
It's an incredible honor to be here, and thank you for those kind words. I'm so grateful to the Hillman Foundation, not only for acknowledging my work, but more importantly for recognizing the stories of these immigrant, undocumented dairy workers who produce our cheap milk and cheese, whose stories are totally unnoticed and overlooked. This is one of the hardest stories I've ever worked on, and in large part that was because it was so hard to find workers who were brave enough to trust me and tell their story. It wasn't only the workers themselves, but their family members and those in the community who know all about the dangers of working in these dairies, but who are terrified to take on the very powerful dairy industry. The workers that I eventually found who were willing to speak to me told me gruesome, vivid stories. These people not only work crap jobs for crap pay, they live in fear of being kicked and gored by cows and bulls, of being smothered by hay bales and run over by incredible farm machinery. At the very end of the day, they are working a dangerous job and they have very limited recourse. Before I became a journalist about 11 years ago, I also worked a number of low-paid, non-union jobs. I was a maid in Alaska, I waited tables in Colorado, and was a landscaper. And the thing is, if I had ever been injured on the job, I would have gone to the hospital and I would have filed a claim against my employer without hesitation. I'm sure most of you would do the same. But for the people who I had the honor of meeting in the course of reporting this story, that's a huge, huge risk, and one that often isn't in their calculation. To go to the hospital to get the care they need, to call an agency who is actually legally bound to protect them, could mean risking not only their job, but their family's security to live here in the United States. To me, their injuries and deaths from working in these places is an indictment of our current immigration policy. They decided to do a very American thing, which was to take a risk to better themselves and their families. It's something that I think Sidney Hillman would have appreciated. They decided to try and organize and form a union at their dairy, the Ruby Ridge Dairy in Eastern Washington. When I met them, they were full of anger that was palpable, and they had tons of hope that they would be able to better their situation. Within 3 weeks of when my story went to press, they had presented cards to their employers saying that over 50% of the people that worked at this dairy wanted to be represented by the United Farm Workers Union, and they were all fired. This many months later, they still are unemployed. It is an honor of them that I really accept this award. I'd like to thank the great staff at High Country News, which is a scrappy, nonprofit paper that's been around for 40 years covering Western issues. Ray Ring, who won this award several years ago, was an incredible mentor on this piece, and I received great, diligent editing from the staff there. I'd also like to thank my parents and my fiance who are here tonight for their incredible support. Thank you so much.